One of the things that makes Los Angeles so unique and special is how diverse and inclusive this city is. People who come from across the world, and everyone feels like they belong. At the Sephardic temple, Tiferet, Israel. It's been a remarkable 100 years, and so I send my congratulations to the congregation on this amazing anniversary, and my greatest hopes for your growth and success from generation to generation.
A sunny California morning on the eve of the centenary for Congregation Sephardic Temple Tiferet, Israel. Rabbi Tal Sessler, the spiritual leader of the congregation, enters for morning minyan. Kater Chaim Mizrahi leads the prayer service as he has done countless times before, drawing from the ancient Sephardic melodies, reminiscing the golden age of Spain and the Levant.
We are a synagogue of immigrants, chiefly from the Middle East, but also from the Mediterranean. We hold a certain center. Everybody feels comfortable here. We embrace each other physically and emotionally and spiritually. We have liturgy prayers sung also in the Ladino, the specific unique melodies that are beautifully chanted by Chazan Mizrahi.
My melodies all are from Turkey, all the makamim, all the tunes. This is the zechut for me to be part of this beautiful congregation.
It's an exciting, busy place. We have the men's club lectures, we have the sisterhood cultural outings and classes that deal with spiritual perspective on current and practical life issues.
They're telling the Pharaoh, don't you see? Egypt is about to be lost. He can't let go.
We are unique in many ways as far as our services are concerned, as far as the makeup of the temple is concerned, and we're very proud to turn 100.
100 years ago was the dawn of the roaring 20s. Charlie Chaplin was on the big screen, and Harold Lloyd was bringing in the laughs. But on the other side of the world, the Ottoman Empire had collapsed after its losses in World War I. The once proud fez, a symbol of Turkish culture, was forbidden to be worn. Immigration to the United States in the first 20 years of the 20th century was becoming very desirable.
I would say what is so special about the history of the Sephardic community in Los Angeles is that it was continually expanding and that it was internally so diverse. So while founding members were from Rhodes and Greece and Turkey, subsequent generations of members fed the community from so many points of origin.
And we only know this because of the language country mismatch. The census doesn't identify people's religion, but one of the ways you can tell Ashkenazi Jews, for example, is they'll be listed as being from Russia, but they speak Yiddish. That'll be their mother tongue. In the case of Sephardic Jews, and particularly Rodez-Lees, you'll have Greek and Spanish, or Greek and Turkish, or Turkish and Spanish. The Balkan arrivals moved into what was then really the place where workers lived.
And the leitmotif through all of those shifts was the importance of Sephardic identity and Sephardic community.
On February 1st, 1920 at 2 p.m., 39 immigrants gathered in the Walker Auditorium in downtown Los Angeles.
This happens to be the first book of minutes, and these are the 39 original members of the community.
Rabbi Abraham Caraco served as the first rabbi of La Comunidad. Mr. Adolf de Castro Danziger was elected as the first president. Monthly dues would be set at $1 per temple member.
The original constitution here.
Our particular synagogue was, Tiferet Israel, was founded by Jews mainly from Salonika. The synagogue that I belonged to, the Sephardic Hebrew Center, was made up overwhelmingly of Jews from the island of Rhodes. The two of us merged in the year 1993.
I think there were about 100 members then. And we used to hold services in one of the members' homes.
In 1925, Madam Rebecca Haddam founded the Sephardic Sisterhood.
When my grandfather, Rabbi David Tovi, came from Izmir/Burnava, Turkey, to United States, he became the official leader of the Sephardic temple.
By the 1930s, the Great Depression was in full swing. A new individual would emerge on the scene to help. His name was Rafael Amato.
And then in 1931, we had the groundbreaking of the Santa Barbara Avenue Temple.
My connection to Sephardic Temple goes back to my grandfather, Rafael Amato. And the stories I heard from my mother, they had fundraising meetings in Rafael Amato's living room. It's the house I grew up on in Gramercy Place. And that he and other members of the community got together and they raised sufficient money and built a synagogue inaugurated in the height of the Great Depression.
The Santa Barbara Avenue Temple was dedicated on February 21st, 1932. 1 month later, Bob Haddam would celebrate his bar mitzvah in the new building.
Our family's been with the temple for 5 generations, and we've had various bar and bar mitzvahs. The first being my father's, who was the very first. I was bar mitzvah also at Santa Barbara in the 60s, and my daughter in the early 2000s on Wilshire Boulevard.
Hi, Grandpa.
Hi, honey. How are you?
Because of the foresight of my grandfather taking those films, we get a glimpse of the life of the Sephardim in Los Angeles during the 1920s.
The first time I went into the synagogue, I was amazed at how beautiful it was. I came from a city where the synagogue was a made-up home, where the members put in 25 cents each. And when it came to the Sephardic temple, when they got up to the teva and they made a donation, like for $50, $100, $24, I was out of my mind because I never heard of that before. I enjoyed it.
In 1939, World War II would break out in Europe. Nazi racist ideology would lead to unimaginable suffering and the Holocaust. By 1941, the Nazis occupied Greece. Persecution of the Jewish population and deportations to death camps would destroy the Sephardic communities of the Aegean.
My grandfather was thrown off the train. He passed away en route to Auschwitz, and my grandmother was gassed as soon as she arrived in Auschwitz. We have one survivor here in Los Angeles that I know of, and that's Sarah Hanan Gilmore, who lives at the Jewish Home for the Aging now.
In Los Angeles, Sephardic men and women were enlisting in the war effort.
I got inducted when I was 18 years old. Went to 17 weeks training as on the front line.
Some would never come home.
The second lieutenant, David Centennial, he was killed in action. Many Sephardic boys that were in the service, and they fought in World War II.
I went into the service, the Navy, in 1943. I served my country.
Thessaloniki boasted, during the Ottoman rule, one of the largest Jewish communities in Europe.
The Jewish communities of Salonika and Rhodes were virtually wiped out.
Some of the survivors arriving from the war were happy to find a home at the temple. One such individual was cantor Isaac Bihar, a Bulgarian Chazan who narrowly escaped death with his violin of hope.
Cantor Behar's story is a sad reminder that Sephardic Jews were part of the Holocaust.
I was hopeful
that here in this community I will find the future, the good future for my family and for me.
Well, I'm actually a third generation member of Sephardic Temple, starting with my grandfather, who was Cantor Isaac Bihar, and my parents, of course. And now my children are also members and do love coming to Temple. But the beauty part is we have multiple members that their kids and their grandkids are still members of the Temple and are continuing to pass those Jewish and Sephardic traditions onto their kids and their grandkids.
I think it was about 1948 or so, my parents joined Sephardic Temple. We always had Shabbat services, which I remember so vividly. In fact, when I met my husband, Jose, it was during a Shabbat dinner. We were members forever.
When I came to the community, the first time I met somebody was, he came up to me and said, "Are you Jewish?"
Well, since I was the secretary, I had access to the members, and they used to call me and tell me their news. And I used to gather the news, put them together, and put them in the El Shofar.
But Sue was indispensable to me. We had no equipment. She had a banged-up typewriter. Then finally, one day, Lou Alcalay gives a hand-me-down mimeograph machine from the office. So that's a big thing for us.
Hello, my name's Jack Israel. I'm the editor of the El Shofar, the newsletter for the Sephardic Temple. The newsletter is published 10 times a year.
Aaron Cohn was Gabbai for over 50 years, so he was the one that lasted the longest. And when he passed away, Saul Matalon became Gabbai. My good friend Albert, he runs the place here.
Nice man, I love him very much.
Huh?
Yeah.
Been here a long time. Yeah. Oh, look at this stained glass. Look at this stained glass. There's beautiful up there. Good morning.
The 1950s and 60s were decades of growth and expansion. Soon, the temple on Santa Barbara Avenue was not big enough for basic synagogue services. There were also demographic changes and congregants moving further west. Once again, the Amato family would come to the aid of the congregation.
It's about time that we built a new temple and removed ourselves from this neighborhood, which is far from where our people are living.
This time, with a bold plan and a property at Wilshire and Warner.
The site where we're standing, where we built our temple, this is when we bought it, and when we started tearing it down.
The new temple was to be built with Jerusalem stone and stylized with Moorish architecture.
The view of the Echal reminds us more than anything else of our roots, where we started on Santa Barbara Avenue. When we decided to move, the main thing was, let's keep our Sephardic heritage.
It was so beautiful. It was more than anything I could have imagined. And whatever I did, I got paid 100 times over by what I got from the Candioti Chapel.
The main sanctuary was donated by the Maurice Amato Foundation. It was dedicated on September 15, 1981. With Sephardic Temple firmly established as a landmark institution, all eyes were on the synagogue as the quincentennial anniversary of the expulsion from Spain in 1492 approached.
Concerning those fateful and tragic days of the Inquisition and of the expulsion.
That historic relationship and that symbolic relationship continued to have tremendous power.
In 1987, Juan Carlos, the King of Spain, made the first of its kind visit to a Sephardic synagogue.
How we were chosen after 500 years to be the ones to welcome the King of Spain.
We took him into the Candioti Chapel,
And we started talking like if we were friends forever.
And they realized that there was a tremendous outpouring, of respect to them.
And Rabbi Yot turned to me and said, Raquel, we are making history.
And then we had special places for them up on the Eichal and so forth and so on. Then we had this plaque on the Piano Plaza.
Sephardic Beth Shalom, whose founders hailed from the island of Rhodes, merged with Sephardic Temple in 1993.
Our differences were very minor. We amplified the differences because that's what you did in the old days in the old country.
The procession of Torahs from one congregation to the next was a unique and emotional event. Ray Cohen, who spearheaded the merger, was the first and only female president of the institutions.
And it was interesting. There were a lot of people against it. My mother was against merging, for one. However, she did come around. Once we merged, she came to the temple and enjoyed it.
Today, she's the president of the Or Hadash Sisterhood and vice president of the Temple Ways and Means Committee.
In the past, we've had baking of boyus and barecas and bizcochos. We had Sylvia Capone helping us. We've had Ray Barrow, Chili Schwartz, Rebecca Mizrahi, Sally Benvenisti. All these women were baking in the kitchen with us, and it was really lots of fun.
And so many food experience that we thought that it would be the best to do a food festival. It was just like a big, huge gathering of 8 cultures.
We have a lot of the young women from the Persian community, which really makes it special.
A lot of Iranian Jews had to leave their homeland, Iran, after the revolution because they were afraid for their lives.
Staying in Iran really was not an option for Jews, and education was a big part of that. The universities had shut down after the revolution.
The ones that came here were looking for something that was close to them.
The prayer book is pretty much the same with Ladinos that it is with Persians.
The celebration of the Iranian New Year, Nowruz.
When you're an immigrant, it is uplifting to be part of a community that welcomes you with open arms.
And the fact that we can all pray together and all commune together and share our religious beliefs together is really heartwarming.
5 years ago, we got an email from Annette Goldsmith, who is the librarian at Sephardic Temple Tifereth Israel, letting us know that the archives there were in a potentially vulnerable position.
I knew that it needed some additional help, and so I contacted colleagues at UCLA.
Files of correspondence.
Before something happens to it, because he was already planning for the 100th back 20 years ago.
We're bulging at the seams and we need more room.
Sure enough, about a year later, we were able to bring the archives over here to UCLA, where they will be stored in posterity.
My father's legacy is all the archives that are now at UCLA that he worked tirelessly on and set the groundwork for future generations to be able to learn about the community.
From the early history of the temple, having a vibrant Talmud Torah was always a top priority.
Sephardic Temple Tifereth Israel has always had a Talmud Torah.
Since we started, I've brought a lot of new and exciting programs to the school, which include a lot of experiential programs that I've been bringing with me.
One understands me like before.
And the way we teach it is in a way that uses all their senses, that I'm not just teaching them to read, but I'm actually teaching them a second language.
In 2012, the Levy Family Early Childhood Center would open its doors to the youngest members of the community.
What we do here at the temple is instill love of Judaism, love of Israel, love of tzedakah, the love of friendship, more importantly, the love of family, and the love for this temple. These children are a big part of Sephardic Temple future. And hopefully some of them will be here for the 200-year anniversary.
We have more young members now that we have had for many, many years. thanks to the preschool.
About a year and a half ago, Josh Marebian and I started a young professionals group here at Sephardic Temple called Shamayim. The group focuses on our ECC families and young singles in their 20s and 30s.
We were honored by Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, who gave a Centennial lecture and starting off our Centennial program.
I've been going to Sephardic since I was in 2nd grade.
What Sephardic Temple means to me, and what I can tell you about it the most, is community. I'm here in Israel by the Western Wall. I'm here with some of my lifelong friends that I met up with in Hebrew school in Sephardic Temple.
I love how we sing together as one and how everybody's into it and everyone's involved.
And I've met so many amazing people who I've connected, and I think I will share a bond with for a lifetime.
Because without them, I really don't know the kind of person I'd be like.
Sephardic Temple Tiferet Israel.
تبریک برای 100 سال گذشته و با نگاهی به 100 سال آینده.
Happy 100!
Happy 100!
Bir asır.
Happy 100!
Vamos a cumplir 100 años.
Vanni viene la havadizes, vendedor de bilibizes, carvador de las indrises, el rabino aguab, pam para pamoris capelo, para pamoris bastón, para pamoris crevata, telas de mi corazón. Na 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 pam para pamoris capelo, pam para pamoris bastón, pam para pamoris crevata, telas de mi corazón.